Streaming live on YouTube.
And then we're going to be, okay, we are live on Instagram now.
Instagram, my old friend.
Yeah. So I've always been kind of curious about your like Instagram breaks.
Yeah.
Um, was like you just like to detox from the social medias a little bit, or
Yeah, you've taken some breaks too, I think, right?
I have, yeah, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think it's just a thing where you just, I think everybody to a greater or lesser degree just gets tired of their phone.
That's fair. Yeah,
You know what I mean? And if you're as old as I am, you tend to sort of reminisce about the days of no phones. Um, and it's just nice to kind of take those breaks because you tend to sort of, you know, find yourself on your phone maybe more often than you would like. And it's so great to explore and discover with Instagram. And of course, I've met amazing photographers through Instagram, and with film photographic, we've been able to connect with a lot of people and connect people in the film community and all of it. There's a lot of positive, but I just get tired of the phone and all the apps and all that. So once a year or whenever it's been, I like to just kind of take breaks from having Instagram on my phone and all that stuff.
that's totally fair. I can feel that.
Yeah.
Like I've taken a few breaks for sure here and there where I just needed some time to like detox from the
Sure.
internets and all of that.
Yeah.
I was hoping that it would come before we caught up, and it did. I just got your new book in the mail.
Oh, wow.
So it just
Thank
showed
you.
up yesterday. I was getting a little bit worried because like packages get stolen in my neighborhood all the time. So I was
Yeah.
like a little tiny bit worried that like it might have gotten poached there. But dude, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's been tricky with the London and a lot of the shipments. The Stanley Barker is shipping books from London. And they had that recent lockdown, and it's been a bit tricky, but um, yeah, it's good. It's good that you got it. Wow, a day ago, huh?
Yeah, like it just got here yesterday, and I'm still waiting for Raymond's book though. I was hoping that would have got in, beforehand. I'm really excited
Wow,
to
you
check
didn't
that
get.
one.
Wow, that would have shipped a while ago. I'll
Yeah,
have to look into that.
mail's been kind of messy. I looked at the tracking, and it's in Canada now, so
Oh, it is.
it should hopefully get here at any time. But yeah, dude, this has been beautiful. But one question I wanted to ask you about this specifically, because you've been getting pretty big into the bookmaking, is what was the experience of making in the Gold Dust Rush versus a plain view like?
Mm.
Because I know
I
that you
mean,
were very
it's
hands on
all
with this
difficult.
one.
I mean, that's. Sorry, what? Sorry, what'd you say?
I remember you were very hands on with a plain view, and
Yeah, yeah, same thing here. But the publisher is Stanley Barker's in London, and the book was printed in Verona, Italy.
oh, crazy.
So a lot of their books are printed at EBS, which is a really amazing printer in Verona. They do a lot of photo books. So it was tricky with a plain view. I was on press, but what helps is I make match prints, right? So and then I sent the match prints to Stanley Barker, and then they sent the match prints to EBS in Verona. So the press operators, as they're printing the sheets for the book, they're able to use my match prints as reference.
Okay.
So, and then Flow Photographic in London, they did all the duotone separations. And Alex at Flow Photographic is really, really knowledgeable, and he does a lot of separations with black and white photos. And so I certainly knew that I was in really good hands with these guys because Stanley Barker, they make amazing books, and EBS and Flow Photographic. but still, you're always a little bit nervous because you're not there on press, and I'm kind of picky. But it turned out great. But yeah, it's always a little bit more comfortable when you can be on press and see the act. Like with a plain view, I was there, and I saw the sheets coming off the press, and I was there with the press operator with my match prints. And I mean, color is really tricky. There's a lot more to sort of, there's a lot more going on. And so with a plain view, it was nice to be on press. But the new book, I think, turned out okay. I think everybody did a good job, but it's always a little bit nerve wracking because once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's pretty stressful.
It turned out beautifully. Like, I've really been enjoying digging into it, and it's cool seeing black and white versus color from the plain view book. It definitely has a different feel to it. And I still have a couple rolls of that Scala that you recommended that I need to send down to DR5 to get processed.
Yeah, the old Scala or the new stuff?
It was some new stuff from Freestyle.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't tried the new Scala. I think it's 160 ISO. The Scala that I've used over the years is the original Scala, but of course they don't make that anymore. I haven't tried the new stuff, but Dave at DR5 said it's good.
Nice.
And I think they only make the new stuff in 35 millimeter. The old stuff was also 120.
That's wild. So you have collected like a stash of of old Scala then that you've been working through?
Yeah, when I was doing the Oklahoma photos in 2018, all the black and white stuff was Scala that I had. And for the most part, it looked okay, I mean, it's 120 Scala, fresh Scala processed by DR5 is absolutely stunning. For the most part, everything looked good, but I think there were a few rolls in there, here and there, that were a little bit poorly stored maybe, and they didn't quite have that Scala punch, but I got pretty lucky because some of the boxes that I brought to Oklahoma with me were, 10 years expired.
Oh shit!
You have to kind of be careful with expired film, especially if it's not stored. If it's stored poorly, you have to be careful.
Yeah, I've been playing with some old Agrichrome RS1000 that I think the oldest roll that I shot expired in like 1990, and then it's a mixture of like 1990 to like 1995. And
that's pretty old.
Yeah, it's come out beautifully though.
Nice.
Like it's I need to get it. I need to try getting a processed E6 because so far I've done it all cross-processed, but it's come out really nice with the cross-processing.
Cross-processing.
Yeah.
Here we say cross-processing. Yeah. You say it the proper way.
That's true. So I was curious about the Oklahoma project. So it's like I got a chance to see the exhibition that you had there at the Philbrook, which was beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks again for making it all the way down.
Oh, of course, man. Like I didn't want to miss that one. It was really cool to just see that, and the Larry Clark exhibit next door to you there was fantastic too. Like that,
beautiful prints, yeah. Those were I think original darkroom prints from the 70s, I believe.
Oh, holy shit.
They acquired. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Really beautiful prints, those Larry Clark prints.
Well, I remember that was like, it was the first time he's ever been exhibited in Oklahoma too, I think.
In Tulsa, I think so, yeah. I think that was the first time the Tulsa prints had been on display.
You've got someone in the comments here that says, come do a show in Toronto.
I love Toronto a lot. I'd love to. I love Canada.
Yeah, it would be fantastic to have you come up and visit sometime. Oh, we got a question from the chat here. Aaron Lance Lopez asks you, how many stops do you compensate for expired Scala?
That's a really good question. A little bit, yeah. A little bit of extra exposure, certainly. Yeah, a little bit. So Scala is what 200 ISO. So I think I would shoot that at 100, and then Dave would process it at 100.
Okay.
Yeah, a little extra breathing room. Yeah, I think Aaron's got some old Scala.
Maybe that's
Aaron's
why.
a friend of mine from Denton, Texas.
Oh, nice. Excellent. And then Barb, who was with us in Boston there, she says you should come to Saskatchewan too.
Okay, I'll do a whole trip
Um,
across Canada.
And then D.S. Manning, who was also in Boston with us,
Yep.
asks you if you're still shooting any Polaroid, and if you have any thoughts on one instant and the future of peel apart.
If I have any thoughts on what?
One instant and the future of peel apart.
I don't know what one instant is.
So One Instant is the new film that Doc Capps, who started Impossible.
It's one peel apart sheet at a time, right?
Correct, yeah.
I think I saw versus a pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I have a lot of leftover Polaroid film, 4x5, and some pack film, and some 8x10 Polaroid film still. I'm a little intimidated to use it because I don't want to know just how many sheets are not usable.
Yeah.
But, because the black and white stuff crystallizes, the chemicals crystallize, it gets really crunchy and turns into basically like hard powder.
Yeah.
The color stuff holds much longer, but it gets kind of streaky. But I still have the plan to finish up all the 8x10 Polaroid film that I have and try to put together a book where basically the first half of the book is all the original 8x10 Polaroid photos from when I first started road tripping and using that film back in 2006. And the second half of the book being all the expired stuff. And kind of just seeing those differences between the fresh stuff, 13 years ago or whatever, and then the expired stuff currently. And
That'd
kind
be
of
super
put
interesting.
images against each other and get through that film. I don't think there's going to be any black and white. Maybe I can salvage a few, but I've got maybe 3 or 4 boxes of the 809, which is the color 8x10 Polaroid. But it's just insane how much people are selling that stuff for on eBay.
Yeah.
I think I've seen the 809 on eBay sell for as much as $1,300.
It's
for a
wild,
box.
especially because you can buy fresh stuff from Polaroid now for way less than that. And
But the 8x10 stuff?
yeah, they make new 8x10. They're out of color right now. I think they might still have.
Polaroid, the company Polaroid is making again 8x10 Polaroid film?
Yes, sir.
What? I haven't heard anything about this.
Yeah. They do production runs every year of it, color and black and white. They sold out of color last year, and they still were going through a bit of the black and white, and then there's going to be another production run planned sometime this year where they're going to do
Not the impossible stuff, but the original Polaroid formula.
Well, it's the impossible stuff. So it's not the peel
impossible
apart,
stuff.
but because impossible is Polaroid now.
Oh, I see. It is peel apart, but the impossible stuff that I've seen, the 8x10, it's peel apart, but the image is reversed,
Yeah,
and it's
so
got that Mylar coating.
that
right?
that's what they're still producing now is the reversed image stuff. So
Yeah, the original stuff is just incredible.
yeah,
I wish I would have. I had no idea back in 06 when I was buying a lot of it and using it that they would ever stop making it. You can't. I never would have known that they would stop. So I shot it 2006, 2007 on road trips, and then I started shooting 35 millimeter black and white mostly out on the road, and so my 8x10 Polaroid film just kind of sat there, just went dry. So I've got to get to it sooner than later and try to finish that project.
you had another That sounds like a hell of a project, though. Like that, I'd be curious to see how that book turns out. Honestly.
I mean, look, a couple of years ago, maybe it was 2017, I took I took a few boxes of it out on the road, and I went when I was living in Texas, and I did some Texas. I went into Arkansas. I was maybe gone for about 5 days, and I had a clothesline in the camper of my truck, and I was out just kind of documenting as I do, and I was trying to, and I had only brought the 8x10 stuff with me, and sadly, it was really hard to get some of it to work. I think I probably got maybe 5 exposures that I would use out of 3 or 4 boxes.
Oh shit!
You know, it's not terrible because there's only 15 sheets per box, but it was a little bit disheartening because you start to peel it and you go, oh, it's working. The chemicals spread across the whole print, and then you get a big wash of no image, and you go, oh. But you really like what you're photographing. And you go, well, maybe I'll try one more, but I only have this much left. So I think the second half of the book will really be about the sort of torment, I think, of trying to find some good exposures with this old film that sort of will become sort of a part of the story. Using a film that was so readily available that you could buy. I used to buy it at Sammy's in LA, that you could buy like anything else at a camera store. It wasn't limited. It wasn't sacred. They sold it as much as they sold any other film.
Yeah, it's
the idea of like just going through. I mean, back in the day, people would just burn through Polaroid film, and then now it's like you're coveting every last sheet you have. So the beginning being like just going through it until you get the image and not thinking in terms of this film might be discontinued, and trying to finish up my surplus of those films, and having to be really careful in doing so. So it's a total contrast between how it was versus how it is now, and how it's going to be when I try to finish that film.
Yeah, I can understand that with pack film. I have like a small little stash of like the Fuji FP100 left and a bit of Polaroid. Yeah. And it's been sitting in my fridge for like almost 3 years now. I haven't touched it yet because it's just like I'm afraid it's not going to work, but then once I use it, it's going to be all gone. And so it's just what to do with it.
Yeah, it's tricky, man. It's the whole thing is just a big bummer.
it kind of is. Like I really wish they would bring it back. But we got another question here. Jeffrey Philman is asking if you have any recommendations for photographers looking to print their first photo book.
Don't do it. No, I'm kidding. I've actually seen some really well-made, beautiful books done by Blurb. And I think I even heard something about Robert Adams, the photographer, talking about Blurb. Like, any way you can make your book, do it. Use Blurb, whatever. Any way you can make a book, do it. And I try to buy books and stuff that I see on Instagram and zines and stuff. I get really excited about what people are doing, and I try to support and buy stuff and add, stuff that I see to the photo book collection. And I've bought some stuff from photographers through Instagram, that books that were published by Blurb, and they were really incredible, like really nice, high quality matte papers, really nice varnish, good binding. And I thought, wow, that's incredible. This book looks amazing. You literally get to the end and it's got the Blurb logo on the back, and I'm thinking, wow, this is like a really good photo book, and it was done by like a printing service. Whatever it takes, making books at home, making zines, using printing services like Blurb. Maybe there's others out there like Blurb, but I mean, I think that's definitely a way to do it for sure. Yeah, a lot of my favorite stuff that I have are zines that I've gotten. Homemade zines, and people getting creative with homemade books, hand stitching and stuff. Um, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question in terms of how to make a photo book, but yeah, I mean, start with a zine if you haven't already.
And I definitely second the blurb thing. Like that book that I sent you a copy of there, that was all done in blurb. And
Look great.
I was really happy with it. Like I did have a friend help me do all the design in Adobe, but they did all the printing, and I did 2 copies of it. And this was like maybe an interesting thing if you have a book question, or the person had the book question. I did a landscape version and a portrait version, only because my friend that's the designer, he wanted it to be landscape, but I wanted it to be portrait because the portrait book is cheaper to make.
Really?
Yeah, so like with portrait, you can do a version called a trade book that uses like just a trade. It's like a 10 weight lower paper than the landscape book. And it's significantly cheaper, like almost half the price to do the trade book than it is to do the landscape one. But he did a landscape design initially, and I was like, this is beautiful, but can you make it portrait? Because that's what I want to print it in. And he got like so heartbroken that I was like, all right, I'll tell you what, like, I'll do a run of 90 books, 60 of them will be the portrait, and 30 of them will be landscape. And it surprised me. I didn't think people would buy the landscape one because it was more expensive. I sold out of the landscape one before I did the portrait one.
Wow.
But me personally, I liked the portrait one more because the landscape was supposed to be matte paper, but it was almost a little glossy. Okay. And I didn't really like how the photos looked on that sort of like glossy look because they just... something didn't look right about them on there, whereas like on the trade paper it was like more of a matte, and the photos looked more like inside of the paper than they did on the other one. So I personally liked the trade book a lot more, but a lot of people like the landscape, so it's interesting. And like the biggest thing too, if you're going to try blurb, spend the money to get one copy done first, even though you're going to spend more on shipping to get that one copy before you commit to doing a big run of it. Just get that one copy, because I thought I'd be happy with like the first iteration I did of it, and I was like going to commit to the whole run, but then I was like, let's just do one, and I hated it. And so like from what I hated from that first copy, we made a bunch of changes so that we could do the final.
Oh, so you can do that. You can make changes, and then so you can hold them off, basically, right?
Yeah. So like I had them do one copy for me,
and then they wait. They wait basically to get your notes or whatever.
Yeah. So like once you get that one copy back, you can just start another project up and make all those changes that you want in that new project, and then submit that project to have the run done. So they were fantastic. Like the next book I do, I'll probably end up doing on blurb too. Wow. Yeah, I think it'll be an expansion of like the first one that you have there. Yep. But I'm gonna do it with the pack film I have remaining, and some Fuji Superia 1600 that I've been.
I love that film.
It's a beautiful film.
Yeah.
I have 5 rolls of it left that I've kind of been like saving for a special thing. So yeah, I think that'll be kind of fun.
That's great.
Black Collar Film says they have 2 boxes of Type 52 4x5 that he's terrified to find out if it's unusable.
Oh, I know the feeling. It's awful. I mean, the coveted film is Type 55, the positive negative 4x5 Polaroid film. I think I probably have about 10 boxes of that.
Oh, damn. And
I would say probably 5% of it is usable.
That's fair.
Yeah, pretty depressing.
Equidum asks if you know anything about Kodak instant film. They have a bunch of expired stuff, and they're not sure if it's worth shooting or not.
Kodak instant film?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that Kodak made a really great way of getting sued by Polaroid in like the 80s.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think I heard something about that.
Yeah.
But the packet, the ready load stuff. I wonder, does that have anything to do with the Polaroid thing? Because the 4x5 Polaroid film, the packets are basically the same thing as the Kodak ready load 4x5 conventional film packets. That's what I use with a plain view. And you can use their ready load holder, or you can use a Polaroid 4x5 holder for the ready load.
Yeah, I think the Kodak stuff she's asking about was like cartridge stuff, almost like Polaroid was.
Like the integral film.
Yeah.
Mylar stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about a peel apart thing.
No,
I never tried that.
And Brian says he's sad that he'll probably never get to shoot the original Polaroid 8x10 film. He bought some last year and it didn't work out. But he's been happy with the new stuff. Theory of Brian. Stuff. Yeah, the impossible stuff.
I mean, it's certainly better than nothing, isn't it? Absolutely.
That's the way that I look at One Instant as well, too. Like, it's not ideal and it's not real pack film, but it's better than nothing, and I can still use my pack film cameras with something, so it's kind of a nice bonus.
And the idea that people understand the value of that and how much people love it and they're trying to keep it alive. I mean, I think that's really great, you know?
Absolutely. Aaron asks, geographically, where do you see yourself shooting next?
Aaron Lopez?
Yeah.
Aaron Lopez. I just the usual, just kind of all over, I guess. I went to Galveston, Texas, in November and shot some photos there for a project. That was really interesting. The next project, I think, will take me just kind of all over randomly, as I like to do. I mean, I'm usually like middle of America to the west for the most part. The West Coast and Utah and Oregon, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Colorado. But at one point, I'd like to get down to the South more, you know, and document that a little bit more. I used to carry the land camera around with me a lot, and I was in Georgia, and I shot a bunch of 3000B pack film in Georgia. I loved it. But I've never really explored Alabama, Mississippi, and that region with the camera as much. I haven't really gone past east of Texas as much as I'd like, so maybe I'll get out there. But there's a project I have in mind that'll kind of take me around, and that might be a good opportunity to use that project to go into the South. And I haven't really done the Midwest. I see a lot of amazing stuff always coming out of the Midwest.
The Midwest was cool. Like when I went down to Tulsa.
Yeah, you went there, yeah.
Yeah, we drove down through parts of it, and it left me really wanting to go back and spend more time taking like the old Route 66 and some of those back roads and exploring stuff. Because like if you do end up out there, you really should check out Catoosa, Oklahoma. Though the blue whale of Catoosa is quite a thing to behold.
I've seen it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, and so the thing that's more impressive than the blue whale of Catoosa is Blaine, the guy that is the caretaker of the blue whale of Catoosa. He's like, I think probably 70, 80 some years old, and it's been in his family for ages, but the stories that the guy had were just phenomenal. Like, it kind of made me think a really cool project would be to like road trip in those rural areas through the Midwest and collect stories from these people and portraits, and do like a book of like portraits and their stories. Because these people have some fantastic stories, and I was surprised at how friendly so many people were in all these small towns and stuff.
Usually very friendly, yeah.
Yeah, like I was a little nervous about that, like not being a white person going into, rural areas can sometimes be a little sketchy. And I found it super welcoming for the most part, and a very positive experience. That's
great. I did get run out of a small town in Oklahoma when I was there. It was
really
scary. Yeah, I was just roaming the neighborhoods as I do when I roll into a town and I've never been there before. I usually turn left or right and start going down the first street I see once you arrive into wherever you are, and just kind of roam the neighborhoods and just kind of see what's going on. And I'm in this town in Oklahoma, population 50 people, and I see this photo that I want to shoot, and I'm in my '94 town car, um, and just kind of really just creeping along really slowly, and I'm shooting photos out the window, structures and things, and this guy spots me and he turns and looks at me and gives me the evil eye, and I said I'm just taking pictures. I don't work for the government or anything. I'm just taking pictures, just an outsider admiring your little town, just taking pictures. And that wasn't enough for him. And so I just keep driving, and then I cross the main road, and then I go over to the other side, the neighborhood over there, and I'm going through there. And I look in my rear view mirror, and there's this giant, looming, intimidating, red, big tow truck. And I see that it's the guy, and he's driving it, and he's following me around.
Oh, wow.
In the tow truck. I pull over, and like I take my camera out again, and then he gets out of the tow truck and he starts walking towards the car. And that's when I thought, well, I've had enough of this, and I just drive away. And he followed me. And right as I was leaving town, he turned off right before like the edge of town, almost like he never left. He never leaves the edge, like he knew that I was gone, and then he turned off and disappeared down the street. But he was definitely kind of intimidating, and I could only imagine the size of the pistol that he probably had on the bench seat of his old tow truck. So I thought the 3 exposures that I got in that little town were probably enough, and so I hit the road.
Well, I'm glad that it worked out in the end. Jason Moore has a question for you. Have you ever considered just sticking to one camera, one lens, one film type in Gary Winogrand, Henry Wessel, etc. fashion?
I mean, I have lenses that I like if I'm shooting 35, at least like focal length, you know what I mean? But I like square format too, you know what I mean? And I like 6.7 and where it's a little bit taller. I mean, I've thought about it, but I like, for example, in the new book, I like that there's 35, 6.7, and 6.6. And the way I laid the book out and sized everything, all the images have the same height, right? And I like that there's a square, for example, one spread might have a square image on the left and a 35 millimeter image on the right. And the way I've sized everything in that book is I made sure that the heights were the same. So you have a square, and then you have the rectangle, the 35 millimeter rectangle. And when I was laying out this book, I found that I liked pairing a square with a rectangle, but keeping them, again, all linear, top and bottom. And I felt that added a little bit of a kind of peaks and valleys maybe, or just changes throughout. But again, keeping the sizes, all the heights all the same, so that there's nothing that pops. You don't turn the page and then suddenly there's a bigger photo or a smaller. I kept everything kind of contained, but I liked that, and that's something I hadn't really done before. And so I don't know. I sometimes feel like I just want to do square stuff, and sometimes 35. I don't know. I just kind of like to bounce around. But I know that I like certain focal lengths, and it's usually on the wider side, 28 millimeter with 35. And so I'll shoot a 65 millimeter with the 6.7 camera, and then a 65 millimeter with the 6.6 camera. So a little bit on the wider side. So in terms of focal length, there's some consistency there, but I do like the different formats.
Nice. Brian Brooks has a comment and a question. He says,
Mm-hmm.
super stoked stereo is coming back and seeing the photo archives popping up. Are there any plans for a stereo book?
There are plans for a stereo book. Stereo hit its 25th anniversary in 2017, so I'm going to guess on its, what is it? So it's good. It's going on now. It's 20, oh geez, its 29th anniversary. Wow, that's crazy. Probably its 35th anniversary or something. We'll do a book. But yeah, we've definitely talked about doing a kind of documentary telling the story of stereo, and then and with some kind of, you know, thick kind of coffee table book with all the graphics and photos and stuff. That's definitely been a dream of ours, but I think it's such an intimidating undertaking doing something like that. I think we've just been kind of putting it off, but absolutely would love to do a kind of history of stereo book. Thanks for the encouragement. Got to make that happen.
Barb and Aaron have comments on the throwaways saying it'd be really interesting to see the throwaway shots, and Aaron says throwaway shots could be a book called Torment.
Ooh, I like that. You hear my kids running around in the background?
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, on the Polaroid stuff, you mean?
Yes, on the Polaroid stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna, I mean, that's the thing. I'm a little bit OCD, and so like when I went to Texas, when I was in Texas and I went to Louisiana and I had some of the expired 8x10 film with me, it was kind of frustrating because I'd see a photo that I really wanted to get, and again, if I wouldn't get the full spread, the full chemical spread, the full exposure. And there was a part of me that was like, oh, I'll just do one more. I'll maybe just do one more. And I had to kind of just go, no, it's not worth it. Just walk away. And so the idea, again, with this, the second half of the book, or the continuation of the large format Polaroid films, there will be in the book half spreads, lots of imperfections. And I think it's going to be a little bit maybe therapeutic for me to do that, because I'm just going to have to give in to the process of using shitty old, expired large format Polaroid films that aren't going to give me what I'm looking for, and I just have to sort of give in to that and display it as it comes out.
It could be very
so you'll
cathartic.
See again in the first half of the book, you have these beautiful, perfect, prints from the fresh film, and you're going to see a much different kind of a much different Polaroid picture, in the second half of the book. So the throwaways are going to be used, I think.
Yeah, that could end up being a very cathartic process there. Eric also gives his backing for Blurb. He says he's used it a few times. And Alan has a question for you. He's planning stages of documenting Highway 82 from Brunswick, GA to Alamogordo, NM, 28 hours per Google Maps. How much time should he put aside to drive and document, do you figure?
1 second, my kids are going nuts.
No problem.
Dad life. Hey guys.
I will make sure to try and get to everyone's questions here. I'm just kind of like scrolling through as we're working through them, so I'm not ignoring everybody. I appreciate all you guys being on here with us.
We have 5 kids, so thank you for bearing with me here.
No problem at all. I appreciate you taking the time because I know you're a very busy dude. So
No, I couldn't wait to see you again. It's so weird that we see people these days. I know we live really far apart, but just we see people on the phones and on Zoom these days. It's so strange.
It is very strange because, before COVID happened, I was planning on heading down to Los Angeles to visit a bunch of friends, and the world kind of just stopped.
It's been crazy.
Yeah, it has been. Like, you know, I was bummed out not to be able to make it down for Policon, and
Mm.
the experience of being in San Francisco for Policon Bay Area when COVID was happening was really crazy too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's been a crazy time, man. A lot of homeschooling, a lot of just being stuck at home. But working on the books and stuff this year was that definitely helped being at home. So I was bouncing between making the proof prints for the new book and doing all of that, and then taking breaks to like go do math with my kids and stuff. You know, I mean, it sucks, but it's also been kind of an interesting experiment. You know what I mean? Like as a dad, you know, our kids go to school and they're being taught by teachers, and we kind of, unless we're doing bits and pieces of homework with them, you know what I mean? You realize how much they live a separate life at school, and we kind of do our things as adults with our jobs or whatever we do. So as much as it has sucked to be kind of stuck inside, it's really been an interesting experience, you know, like being a part of like my kids' education more intimately, you know what I mean? And watching them grow, like my boy Sonny, who's 8, like struggling with math and getting to help him with that. And now he's really good with math. And like, you know, it's been an interesting time of reflection and realizing what's important and what we take for granted, and just having this family time. It's so much more close knit and connected because everybody's just doing everything kind of together, literally in the same house all the time. There's no waking up and sending the kids to school and they're gone for 8 hours. Schooling is happening in one room and I'm in the other room working on my stuff. And I don't know, it's been kind of, there's been positives in the weirdness of the whole pandemic lockdown thing, you know? So that's been really cool. And they've gotten to see what I'm doing during the day, making photo books and coming into my office and asking questions and what's this and what's that. And I don't know, it's been a lot more sharing, I think, you know? And I was thinking about, I wonder if other people have had that same experience or not. Maybe there's people that have just gone fucking crazy because they have as many kids as I do and their house is a madhouse all the time.
yeah. It's an interesting thing you bring up because I think like in some ways you could look at 2020 as truly fucking awful.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been in a lot of ways, but for myself personally and a lot of other people I've talked to, people have found a lot of positive things that came out of last year that would have never happened had we not been trapped in our homes and had our lives restricted down and like, you know, had things we took for granted taken away from us. So in a weird way, I think as much as COVID's taken away so much from us, it's also given us a lot of things too.
Reflect on, I think, ultimately, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody's frustrated for sure, but I think there's also been a lot of people reflecting and understanding what we have. You know what I mean? There was a lot of loss in 2020. It was tough.
There definitely was a lot of loss.
Step back and you know, just really appreciate what we have for sure. Weird year, but a lot of positives for sure.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. Tim on Film asks, how often are you trespassing when you take a picture, and are you for it or against it?
What kind of trespassing? Like
trespassing onto property, I suppose.
I don't know that I really do. I mean, I'm usually on the side of the road, or if it's, you know, or shooting from a field of some kind, or in a parking lot of, you know, an empty, desolate shopping mall, or trespassing meaning like hopping fences and going onto people's property. I don't know exactly trespassing exactly how. I wonder.
Yeah, let's see if they get back on that one there. Eric says Route 66 from Chicago to Texas. Let's go.
Yes, we've talked about that. That's Eric Bouvet, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Oh wait, somebody was. What was the question?
Oh,
I excused myself.
That was Alan's question from Georgia to New Mexico. The Highway 82. Google Maps says it's about 82 or 28 hours, and he's just curious, like from your experiences with road trips and photographing them, how much time should he allot for like driving and documenting?
What's the mileage?
28 hours.
Oh, it's 28 hours. I would probably say at least a week. Is that a long time? I tend to stop a lot, and then you have to pee and you have to get gas and you get hungry, so you get food, and you're stopping with just that sheer excitement of, I've never been here before. What's this town like? And roaming around and shooting photos, and then you need to eat again. And I tend to kind of take my time, and it depends on if you have to be somewhere. If you don't, take all the time in the world. But I would do that in a week, probably.
All right. Aaron's talking about the trip there, still saying, Eric, let's take the Jaggins. We'll pick up Ramo. Cue the Benny Hill music as Jay drove off.
That's amazing. Oh, that's so great.
That'd be pretty funny. What else? What other comments we got here? Jason Moore asks, is the wider focal lengths from other photographers you enjoy, or skateboarding, or both?
That's a really good question. I can't answer that. That's too good of a question. I don't know. I don't know. One of the first cameras I got was a Mamiya RZ67. Back when they were really expensive, before you could buy them for nothing like you can now. I should have waited. I had a few different lenses, and I just remember liking the wider one a little bit. And then when I started shooting the 8x10 Polaroid films, the lens that came on the old 8x10 camera that I bought was a 210 millimeter Wallensack wide field lens. And so for 8x10, that was like 20, that would probably be about 24, 26, somewhere around that. And I really liked that a lot. And then I had seen Wessel's work for the first time in 2007, and I liked that, Yeah, I like a little bit wider. Yeah. So I think from the beginning, I just felt like a little bit more room felt appropriate, I think, for me.
I feel that. I've been shooting 50 mil a lot, and sometimes it'd be nice to just have like a tiny little bit more room there.
Yeah, so 35 mil on 35 is awesome.
I'll have to see if I could track one of those down from a Nikon. Tim says, any kind of trespassing, if you had to slip through a fence quick to snap a shot, would you, or would you let that one go and just be?
Like of a building or somebody's, like, I wouldn't sneak through somebody's fence, maybe if they were like it was a home that people were living in, they were inside eating dinner.
Yeah.
I've never needed to shoot anything like that, but no, I don't think there's any harm in if you're not disturbing anyone, again, a lot of this stuff I'm seeing is like very, very rural and empty, and there's not really a lot of trespassing, but I think if it's harmless and there's nobody around and you're not damaging property or anything, hopping through a hole in a fence or something to get a photo, I think that's probably okay.
I remember your story of like the solitary person in a plane view that guy that had that janky house that was just like sitting there reading his book on his porch, and
Yeah.
you like stopped to set up, and he just kind of waved at you, and you waved back at him, and
Yeah.
that was like a story that stuck out to me on
I was
playing
across
video.
the street with my 4x5 camera, and he was in a chair near his front door reading a book. And he looked up at me, and I said, "I'm just taking a photo."
Yeah,
And he goes, and then he just went back to reading his book. And I got the one exposure and packed up the tripod and put it in the trunk and closed the trunk and drove off. And he never looked up from his book again.
nice.
That was in Paris, Texas.
I always wanted to check that out. Brian Giesbrecht asks, any interesting stories behind any specific image in the new book?
In the new book. Man. That's a good question. Sorry for the pause there. Gosh, there's a lot of good questions here tonight. I'm going to have to think about that for a minute.
All right, we'll table that one and we'll get back to that, Brian. DS Manning asks you, when is the Stereo Ilford collab he suggested in Boston going to launch?
God, I'm so glad I'm being reminded of that. Let's do it.
Yeah, hit up Mike. I'm sure he'd be down with that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I love that guy. I got to talk to him soon. And Leica Store Boston says hi.
Hey, Alan.
What else we got here? And where is it? Brian Brooks says he's thankful he only has 2 kids.
Oh man, yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's maddening at times, but yeah, we've 5 kids, from a little one up to the big one who got his license last year, and he's driving. It's so crazy.
That's gotta be wild.
But it's good. Like there's a lot of years, like there's good cushion between each, and they all really kind of tend to each other. It's really nice. It helps us out, that they kind of watch each other and stuff when they're not like hurting each other.
As kids do.
As kids do.
Matt waves at you. Matt from Kodak waves and he says, "Looking good."
Matt, what's up?
Yeah, that guy's great. It was cool.
I love going to Rochester.
Dude, so I did that the factory tour last December.
I did it too, and you had to put the whole suit on and everything.
Yeah,
right?
that was so wild. And like the thing that blew my mind the most was when Matt was like, "You're inside of a machine right now." You're like, "No,
crazy.
I'm in a building." He's like, "No, this is a machine." And like,
Yeah.
I'm still wrapping my mind around that, and that was like almost 2 years ago.
It's crazy, man. It was trippy to see Rochester and just what once was. Just all the shut down industrial buildings that used to produce so much stuff
Yeah.
all around the town, It was really beautiful. There was a kind of melancholy about Rochester that I really liked. I mean, remember at one point, I think Kodak had countless thousands of employees. I mean, Rochester had so much big business,
Yeah.
It's weird. It's just weird how that happens, where things just shut down and time goes on and things just sort of get left behind and become reminders,
Yeah, it is really interesting. I definitely would like to spend more time in Rochester when we're able to travel again, because it was a cool place to explore. Like the Eastman House was really cool to visit and check out, and it was like the history there was really fascinating, and it's nice that Kodak is making a comeback of sorts, and like they haven't completely died off, which is great for all of us that love shooting film. Michael Champlain has a question. What's inspired you lately?
Good question. My one of the things probably it's very, very important is my 8-year-old son, who was not really feeling the skateboarding thing, and I never push anything on the kids, you know.
Yeah.
But you certainly hope, like, I really hope he gets into skateboarding, because our eldest, who's 17, he skates every day. For Christmas, I got them a quarter pipe.
Oh shit!
It's in the backyard, and my 8-year-old Sonny, he's now he's totally hooked on skateboarding, and he skates every day. And like that's really been really inspiring, you know. And now he's starting to say, "Dad, what was the first trick you did?" And just that kind of, you know, it's that's been really inspiring. And also seeing my eldest son progress every day, it's just amazing to see that. And I hadn't, you know, skated in a while because I've just been, this whole year's just been making the books, but I put together a new board actually just today.
Oh shit!
New setup, so I'm gonna start rolling around again now that we have the ramp in the backyard.
I saw the post on your son's grams of you cruising through the kitchen.
Yeah, that was just last night. Yeah,
yeah, that was hilarious.
Sometimes that's all it takes, is like stepping on a board again and going, oh yeah, this feels good. I need this more in my life, you know. And then today I set up a new board, you know.
Yeah, I'm really tempted to move back to the West Coast right now. I miss my family and stuff there, and my little brother, he's got 2 awesome kids. I love the heck out of them, Colby and Noah, and they're 5 and 7, and they just started skateboarding this summer, or last summer, like through COVID, and it's been hilarious because the 2 of them are so competitive. Like, they're just insanely competitive with each other, and she's been doing martial arts and just like kicking ass at it, and he's jealous because like he's too little for it yet. So when they started skateboarding, he's beating the shit out of her on skateboarding because he's just like this tiny little dynamo that can just like haul ass everywhere, and even when he falls, he doesn't really hurt himself. He just picks himself up and like takes off again. And they keep bugging me like, Uncle Merlin, like, come skateboard with us. And I'm like, I wish, but I'm like on the other side of the country.
Yeah, it's the best. I mean, the greatest gift I've ever been given was the first skateboard I ever got when I was 7 years old.
Damn.
And my brother, who's 2 years older than me, he got one as well. Just the little plastic banana boards from, I think, Fedco or Kmart or something. This would have been in the 70s in Orange County. And that was just the coolest thing ever. And then we also BMX raced a lot, which was really popular in the 70s. Like, you know, California, people on the West Coast in the 70s, people were, you know, the dads were building hot rods in the garage, and the kids were skateboarding and BMX racing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and then I got into skating more seriously when I was about 13, and then even more seriously when I was about 15. Yeah. But that seed was planted when my mom got me that skateboard when I was 7 years old.
Did you ever get to skate the skate ranch?
Did I ever?
Yeah.
Once or twice when I was a teenager, I went there. And nice. Tony Hawk was there one time. So Tony Hawk at that time when I went there would have probably been about 17. I would have been about 15.
Wow.
And he had his boom box, and he was blasting Oingo Boingo. Like all the 80s tunes, you know, that would have been fitting, I guess, to play at that time. And just watching Tony Hawk, and, you know.
That would have been something else to see back then.
Yeah.
Just
absolutely ruling that skate park.
Did you see Grant back then?
I don't know if we saw Grant back then. But I think seeing Tony Hawk would have been my first, like, star skateboarder sighting. You know, oh, wow, you know.
Yeah.
Because at that point, we would have seen the first Powell video, the Bones Brigade video show. Would there have been a second one out? I don't know, but we definitely knew who Tony Hawk was. And he was there skating with all his 80s pink clothing on, and or I say yellow clothing on, and his bleached bangs and the whole thing, you know.